I didn't know what was happening. I was very young, maybe 5, because I think I wasn't going to school yet. And I would tell my mother about these 3 little white men that would come in the night. And she said, "Oh, Mickey, those are just ghosts. You know, that's silly. You shouldn't. Those are just bad dreams. Don't pay any attention to it." Well, these bad dreams kept coming back and doing things. And one time I woke up instantly. I just instantly woke up, and I was in an immediate state of panic, and I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed, and laying on my back, which I usually don't lay on my back, and it was dark. It was nighttime, and the only movement I had was my eyes, and I could feel the tears, just going down like that on the sides of my face. And there was those 3 little white men again, and they were sort of like floating, and they were thinking at one another. They weren't talking. They were thinking at one another, and they were discussing which one of my sisters, because the 4 of us slept in the same bedroom, which one of my 4 sisters they were going to take this time, besides me. And the one that they were talking about mostly was my sister Georgia Ann. She was, I think, under 2 years old at the time, and they were very dubious about whether or not to take her, because they said, "Well, we haven't taken anybody this young before." Now remember, this was like in the early 50s that this was happening, late 40s, early 50s. And they said they'd have to adjust their equipment to accommodate her and things like that. And they were also discussing whether or not to take my sister Jamie, because she was the second oldest. And I thought, well, I want to think at them not to take Jamie because Jamie's sensitive and she can't deal with this stuff. So I sort of screamed at them in my mind, and they just sort of turned around like in shock, and they have a way of, I don't know, shutting you up, a way of turning you off or turning off their perception of my thoughts, which is what they did because they didn't like being shouted at like that. And so I sort of went to sleep or something. I don't remember what happened after that. The next thing I know is I was holding Georgia Ann's little hand, and I was lying to her. I was telling her, "Don't worry, Georgia Ann, I'll protect you." And I knew I was lying. I couldn't protect her. But the aliens make you say and do things that you do not do of your own volition. They make you do it. Even though you know it's not true. Whatever. They just control you. And we just went out through the window, through the screen. We went out through the window. We weren't even walking. About one experience that I remember when I was 17, 16 or 17, I can't remember. I was on a vacation up in Minnesota, in Lilac Lake, and I was there with my mother's mother. And at first I thought it was all right, this is what happened. I don't understand it. It was around midnight because it was so black and at night, and there was no moon out, and my grandmother and I walked down to the end of this wooden pier, and there was a boat tied up there like it was waiting for us. We didn't speak to one another. It wasn't necessary. We got into the boat. Now the crazy thing is I've never been in a rowboat before in my life, and my grandmother would not go in one during the day because she can't swim. Well, neither could I at the time. We got into this boat, and I had never been in a rowboat before in my life. But I sat down and I thought, well, I guess I have to row it. I felt this compulsion to row this boat out into the middle of the lake. Why? There's nothing out there. And my grandmother and I were sitting in the boat in this moonless night, waiting for something to happen. Well, I had an awareness that someone or something was watching us, and as soon as they saw us, kind of slipped into the water, like it was an object that slipped into the water. And what I saw was these 3 round discs in the water, arranged in a pyramid type of shape, and they were coming straight for us. They were underneath the water, and they were traveling under the water faster than what in 1959, 1960, nothing could travel that fast under the water at that time. That was man-made. And yet these 3 glowing lime green orbs were coming at us, and in front of it was this big round structure, this big round metallic structure that was dark like the water. And it slipped into the water, came straight for us, Well, after something happened, like there was a break in a sequence, like if you're watching TV and you turn it off and then you turn it back on, there's a little break. There was like a break. And this thing comes out of the water, this round object. I turn my head away. I don't know why. I just turn it away. Thing comes out, makes no noise, and then it's gone. And I was sweating a lot, and my clothes were twisted, and I thought, I'm different somehow. I'm different. And I think what happened, as I think back, is either I was impregnated at that time again, or the fetus was gone. But I really think that was during the time I was impregnated, one of the times. And then we must have rowed back to the little wooden pier, tied up the boat, and then all I can remember is the next morning, it was so early, I looked at the lake, and the lake looked like a piece of glass. And my aunt teased me and my grandmother for the next 2 weeks, about our midnight boat ride. Otherwise, I would have thought, well, maybe it was a dream. But she kept teasing us about it constantly. So it was not a dream. Until the day she died, we never talked about it. I wish we had.
Sure.
Because I think it would have been interesting to see how there was a connection from grandmother to mother, who has lost several babies. Where did they go? To me, who has had all these different pregnancies. Now to my daughter, who is an adult. And my grandson now, he's almost 3. He's having nosebleeds. And that, to me, is a tragic part, that these alien cultures attack children. Children. It's bad enough they do this to adults, but when they attack your child, what can you do? You can't even protect yourself. How are you going to protect your child? How are you going to protect your grandchild? Are we really a conquered people? I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that. There's a big connection between humans and aliens, and it's a very physical type of connection. And for humans, it's a very emotional type of connection. Aliens don't have that same type of emotionality that humans have. They don't understand it. They don't, to them, our emotionality makes us very unpredictable. They don't know why we are so attached to these little babies. They say, why bother? Because look at all the babies that are aborted.
Sure.
So why is there this attachment? Well, if humankind has been genetically manipulated, and it may have been, I don't know, it may really have been manipulated, there's one thing that makes us special or unique, and that is our spirituality, because that goes beyond our physical self. And that's something that is elevating. It elevates humankind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that the aliens have a lot of trouble dealing with. That's the thing that sort of makes us not slaves. It makes us something a little bit better than just genetic lump of flesh that can be manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to us than that.